Ever get that sinking feeling? You know when you're at the gas pump and it just keeps running and running, and you're thinking, there's no way I've used this much gas already.
It's definitely been a pain in the wallet lately with these gas prices.
For real. So we're diving into something we can probably all relate to today, fuel efficiency. And get this. We found this super interesting source. It's in Spanish, believe it or not, all about driving tips to save on gas.
You know, it's interesting. Even though driving conditions and the types of cars people drive are different all over the world, a lot of the core principles behind fuel-efficient driving are actually the same.
Exactly. And we dug through this source, this treasure trove of tips. There were like 15 of them. And we picked out the most surprising, the most useful, even some myth-busting ones to share.
Yeah, we're going to be challenging some common assumptions about how to save gas, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. So get ready to rethink what you thought you knew about fuel efficiency. Now, one thing I've always heard is that keeping your RPMs low is key. You know, channel your inner grandma driver, like just coasting along.
Okay, so there's some truth to that, but it's not just about keeping your RPMs low. It's more about keeping them steady. Think about it this way. Every time you stomp on the gas, you're basically forcing your engine to guzzle way more fuel than it really needs.
It's like, whoa, too much, too fast.
Exactly. Smooth and steady acceleration, that's the name of the game if you want to stretch your gas tank as far as it can go. Like, who's going to conserve more energy, a marathon runner who paces themselves or someone sprinting like crazy?
Makes sense. Okay, I'll admit, I've been guilty of having a bit of a lead foot, especially in traffic. It's like my inner race car driver comes out.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
But if you can be mindful of those little bursts of acceleration, especially in stop-and-go traffic, it can actually make a difference in your fuel consumption over time.
So, smooth acceleration check.
Yeah.
Speaking of driving habits, this source really stresses planning your route. And I'll be honest, terrible at that. Love a good scenic detour, even if it means using a bit more gas.
Yeah, the scenic route is always tempting. But this source says that if you just plan your trips out ahead of time, stick to the most efficient route, you could potentially save something like 14% on your fuel costs. Think of all the snacks you could buy with those savings.
Okay, 14%, that's huge. All right, here's another one that seems obvious, but we're all guilty of it sometimes. How much extra stuff are you carrying around in your car?
Oh yeah, it's amazing what we accumulate in our vehicles.
Right, but the Spanish source, they're saying that all that extra weight can increase fuel consumption by up to 6%. It's like driving around with an extra passenger or two back there.
It's true.
Just from that forgotten gym bag and that box of books you keep meaning to donate. Yikes.
Okay, another easy one, tire pressure. When's the last time you checked yours?
It's one of those things that's so easy to forget, but it makes a huge difference, not just in safety, but also in how efficiently your car uses fuel. This source was really hammering the tire pressure thing, and now I see why, even a little bit underinflated, and you're looking at a 2% increase in fuel use in the city and on highways. It jumps to 4% just from your tires being low.
Yeah, and that's because underinflated tires create more what's called rolling resistance. Basically, your engine has to work harder to keep your car moving at the same speed.
Yeah.
It's like riding a bike with flat tires, so much harder to pedal, right? Same idea with your car.
Time to dust off that little tire pressure gauge they give you at the gas station. It's like a magic wand for your wallet. Speaking of things we might have wrong, the Spanish source actually debunks a common driving myth. Coasting downhill in neutral. I always thought that would save gas, but they say in modern cars, it's actually the opposite. Hold on, really? That's so counterintuitive. Why is that?
So in older cars, yeah, coasting in neutral might have saved a tiny bit of fuel, but modern cars with fuel injection, they're smarter than that. They can actually cut off fuel to the engine almost completely when they sense you're going downhill in gear.
So it's basically like your car's saying, don't worry about it, I got this, and it's taking a little power nap while you coast. That's pretty cool.
Right. And, that's something we take for granted now, but that ability to just completely cut off fuel during coasting, that's a relatively new thing.
Yeah.
That makes a big difference.
It's like having a co-pilot whose only job is to save you gas. Love it. And speaking of things we might not realize, this source talks about a few sneaky gas guzzlers, things you wouldn't expect. For example, ever think about your gas cap, like a loose gas cap? Could that actually be costing you money?
It might not seem like it would do much, but yeah, a loose gas cap, especially when it's hot out, it can let fuel evaporate right out of your tank.
It's like money just disappearing into thin air. And here's another one I never would have guessed, dirty air filters. Are you telling me those things impact fuel efficiency?
Big time. Think of it this way. That air filter, if it's clogged up, it's like your engine is trying to breathe through a straw. It restricts the airflow, which means your engine has to work harder, which burns more gas. And that, my friend, means less money in your pocket.
So a happy engine means a happy wallet. And speaking of keeping things running smoothly, this source also talks about using the right engine oil. I feel like that's got to be important, but how much of a difference does it really make?
It makes a bigger difference than you might think. See, when you use the wrong type of oil, or even if the viscosity is a little off, it creates more friction inside your engine. And that friction, it basically means you're losing energy as heat instead of using it to power your wheels.
So it's like the difference between wearing those old shoes that hurt your feet versus a brand new pair with good support. Your car knows the difference.
Exactly. And this actually leads into another interesting point from our Spanish source. They say that in some cases, giving your engine a little rev before shifting gears can actually improve fuel economy.
Wait a minute. You're telling me giving it a little gas saves gas? That makes zero sense.
It seems counterintuitive, but hear me out. It all has to do with understanding your engine's power band, right? Which is basically the RPM range where it operates most efficiently. When you're starting from a stop, or if you're going uphill, bringing your engine up to a slightly higher RPM before you shift can help it hit that sweet spot faster, and in the end, that can use less fuel overall.
So it's all about finding that perfect balance, like a little dance between smooth acceleration and giving your engine the little boost it needs to really hum along. I can see how that would take some practice.
It does. But it's all about working with your car, not against it.
All right, listeners, time to channel your inner race car driver, but, safely. Keep an eye on those RPMs.
And on that note, that ties into another tip from our source. Anticipate. Pay attention to the traffic flow. You want to be looking ahead, reading the road like a pro chess player, anticipating when you might need to slow down or stop so you can adjust your speed smoothly and avoid slamming on the brakes.
There's nothing better than perfectly timing a light and just coasting through. It's so satisfying. And it saves gas. So we're talking about being a more mindful, proactive driver.
Exactly. Every time you hit those brakes hard, not only you're wasting fuel, but you're also putting more wear and tear on your brake pads. And nobody wants that.
It's amazing how these little things we do, just small adjustments in how we drive, can actually add up to some real savings in the long run. A penny saved is a penny earned, or however that saying goes. Or in this case, a liter of gas saved is a liter earned.
It's funny, we often get so caught up in the big picture of saving gas that we forget about the little things that can make a difference. Speaking of which, the Spanish source mentions something so simple. If you're idling for more than a minute or two, just turn off your engine.
It's true. Out of sight, out of mind, right? We don't really think about the gas we're burning while we're just sitting there, especially if we're distracted or in a hurry. But all those little moments idling at a train crossing or waiting in line for takeout, they add up. Not just in wasted gas, but in emissions, too. Every little bit counts, right? Turning off the engine, even for short stops, definitely going to be doing that more often.
Right.
Okay, here's what I'm curious about. Cruise control. Does that actually save fuel or not? I've heard different things.
So cruise control is really most effective for those long stretches of highway driving. Where you can just set it and forget it, maintain a nice steady speed. It basically eliminates that human element, those little variations in speed that we all do without realizing it.
So it's like your car is saying, just sit back and relax, I got this.
Exactly.
That makes sense, especially since, as we talked about, all those micro accelerations can really sabotage your fuel economy. It's all about finding that smooth groove and sticking with it. Now, this Spanish source gets a little more technical with this next tip. They talk about your oxygen sensor. I'll be honest, I have no idea what that is or what it does.
It might sound complicated, but bear with me because the oxygen sensor is actually key to helping your car save fuel. Think of it this way. Your engine, it needs the right mix of fuel and air to run its best, right? The oxygen sensor, it's like a little messenger between the engine and the car's computer. It's constantly checking the exhaust, seeing how much oxygen is in there, and reporting back.
So the oxygen sensor is like the engine's personal trainer telling it how to breathe better.
Exactly. And based on that feedback, the car's computer can then fine-tune the whole fuel-to-air ratio, making sure the engine is running as efficiently as possible. But here's the thing. If that oxygen sensor isn't working right, it's like sending mixed signals to the engine. And that can lead to all sorts of problems, including using up more gas than you need to.
Wow, so many little things that we don't even realize are affecting our fuel efficiency. I have to admit, that one sounds like a job for the mechanics.
It's definitely a good idea to have them check it out as part of your regular maintenance. It's a small investment that can save you a lot of money and headaches in the long run.
So we've covered a lot of ground today. From practical driving techniques to some surprising maintenance tips, thanks to this amazing Spanish source we found, I feel like I'm ready to take on those gas prices with a whole new level of knowledge.
That's what we like to hear. And, it's not just about individual savings. If we all start incorporating even a few of these tips into our driving, it can make a real difference. We're talking about saving a ton of fuel collectively, reducing our impact on the environment. It's a win-win.
Absolutely. It's amazing how being a little more mindful, a little more informed behind the wheel can not only help our wallets, but also benefit the planet. So, as we wrap things up today, listeners, here's something to think about. What one tip are you going to commit to this week? Will you channel your inner grandma driver and work on those smooth accelerations? Maybe you'll finally tackle that clutter in your trunk. Or maybe it's time to invest in that tire pressure gauge. Whatever it is, remember, knowledge is power. And now you have the knowledge to become a more fuel efficient driver. Drive smart, save money, and help the planet. Until next time, happy and efficient driving.